And I'm absolutely delighted that we can now join Dean Freidman.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely brilliant. We played Ariel there, as you know, just before you came to you, and that's a song that did really well in America, but not so good in the UK. Would I be right in saying that?
I suppose so, but I know that whenever I play it here on tour, the audiences seem to go wild.
Yeah.
So I know it got some airplay.
So Lucky Star is still being played on the radio today. How did the writing of that come about?
Well, you know what? I was driving a taxi cab in New York City, listening to a lot of country music on the radio, and at that time, there were not a lot of duets in pop, but there has always been a long tradition of duets in country music. And so, in some ways, Lucky Stars was sort of my pop version of a country duet, filled with marital strife and squabbling and jealousy. That's pretty much what happened.
Denise Marsa was that girl who sang with you, wasn't she?
Indeed. I met her through Don Palouse, who was the engineer on my first album, and he worked with her for a while. Met her in a recording studio, and she opened her mouth to sing, and her voice filled the room. So when I wrote Lucky Stars, I thought, I bet she can do a nice job at this.
And it got number 3 in the UK.
It did, yeah.
And then Well Said the Rocking Chair. Was that kind of the same time as the single?
All those songs were written pretty much in one batch. Before I went into the studio, I was living on 72nd Street in Manhattan, and I had a beautiful grand piano in a studio apartment. I wrote a bunch of songs, and they were definitely all infused with the city. Living in New York, and the energy and the tempo and the people there. I think it shows when you listen to the record as a whole.
I was reading that your first guitar purchase in 1964. What kind of inspired that? What made you want to go and buy a guitar?
Well, gee, I suppose it was probably the Beatles.
I knew you were going to say that, yeah.
I think there's no question about that. And there was a time when I was real little, every little boy wanted to grow up to be a cowboy and then an astronaut. But then everyone wanted to be a rock and roll star.
Everybody wanted to be a Beatle, yeah. Songwriting in the 60s was kind of a big thing. I'm thinking of people like Crosby, Stills and Nash and Young and people like that. So that was a great time in LA, wasn't it, to write songs as well as in America?
Absolutely. It was a generation of singer-songwriters. And, I love all kinds of music, but I definitely had an affinity for storytellers, songwriters who painted pictures with their words and music, something I always aspired to do starting out as a songwriter, and still to this day.
Yeah. I mean, the usual stuff I found out about you was that you actually wrote music for the TV series in the UK called Boone.
I did indeed, and it was great fun. Michael Elphick and Neil Morrissey. I got to write all this country western cowboy music because that was sort of the subtext of Ken Boone riding around on his motorcycle. He was, I guess, a Texas Ranger in the Wild West on his trusty steed, righting wrongs and going after bandits.
Yeah, of course, and Neil Morrissey went on to bigger things after that as well. So, yeah, it was great. It was a great show for him as well, wasn't it? And I bought a vampire motorcycle. How did that all come about? How did you write music for that?
Well, the same cast and crew that worked on Boone, including Neil Morrissey and Michael Elphick, got involved in doing this low-budget horror film, which became a cult classic called About a Vampire Motorcycle, and they invited me to do the music for the soundtrack, and that was also great fun. Title track was She Runs on Blood, Not Gasoline. And you can still catch it late at night on Sky or on DVD. There's nothing quite like it.
A vampire film set in, was it Birmingham, wasn't it?
Yeah, and motorcycle was possessed and goes around slashing people. And
oh my goodness me, incredible.
It's a very fun, tongue-in-cheek horror film.
Now, last year was the 40th anniversary tour. How did that go for you?
Well, it was great, reconnecting with the original audience and that music and that time and making that album brought back a lot of memories. And, some of the songs on Well Said the Rocking Chair, I never really played live. I wrote them, I recorded them in the studio, and for one reason or another, they never wound up in my set list. So it's forced me to sort of relearn these songs and put them into my set. And it was a challenge, but a very satisfying experience. And I think from their reaction that the audience appreciated it.
So somebody hasn't seen you then. Do you sort of appear on stage on your own, or have you got a backing band? How do you do that?
Well, sometimes I'll perform with the band. This tour I'm doing an acoustic solo set on guitar and keyboards. Mm-hmm. And, telling stories and singing my songs. A little bit of the early stuff and new stuff and fan favorites from over 4 decades of studio recordings.
So you don't mind doing the old stuff, do you? So, because some artists don't like doing the old stuff?
I enjoy it. It's not like I'm out on the road 200 days a year.
No.
I only tour about, maybe 10 weeks a year, and still fun and especially satisfying when the audience starts singing along and, they know the words better than me. That always feels good.
The guitar was the start of it in '64, I believe, and then obviously now you're kind of playing different instruments. You've learned that along the way. Have you learned to play different instruments?
Yeah, I took piano lessons and guitar lessons, taught myself harmonica, and, sort of use whatever instrument comes to hand and try to cobble together songs and recordings by kind of personal expression, which is I tell stories and songs about my life and the lives of folks around me. And then I get to use my poetic license, which is a nice way of saying that I get to lie and make things up.
Thanks so much for being my guest today. It's been a delight to talk to you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Dean. Thanks so much indeed. We'll play Lucky Star. Here we go.
What are you crazy? How in the hell can you say what you just said?
I was talking to myself, shut the door and come to bed.
By the way, I forgot to say, your endearing mother called today.
Did you see Lisa?
Yes, I saw Lisa.
Is that why you're angry?
I wasn't angry,
Maybe a little.
not even maybe.
Must be the weather.
Now don't be a baby.
Well, how am I supposed to feel with all the things you don't reveal? And you can thank your lucky stars that we're not as smart as we'd like to think we are. Would you like to talk about it?
There's not much to say. We had lunch this afternoon. Her life's in disarray. She still goes around as if she's always stumbling off a cliff.
Do you still wonder?
What are you saying?
Do you still wonder?
Baby, stop playing.
Really, I mean it. Can you forget her?
Baby, now stop it. You should know better. I know this is hard to do, but there's no one for me but you. And you can thank your lucky stars that we're not as smart as we'd like to think we are. Like a fool, and I apologize.
Listen, hon, I know you're dumb, but that's okay. You don't have to look so glum.
Do you still love me?
Yes, I still love you.
You mean you're not just being nice?
Not just being nice.
Do you feel sleepy?
Oh, you're so sincere. Yes, I feel sleepy.
We'll slide over here, 'cause I may not be all that bright, but I know how to hold you tight. And you can thank your lucky stars that we're not as smart as we'd like to think we are.
And you can thank your lucky stars that we're not as smart as we'd like to think we are.
And we can thank our lucky stars that we're not as smart as we'd like to think we are.
Yeah, Dean Freidman. And Lucky Star. Yes, big hit.